Welcome back to another episode of Who Cares Anyway? You know how this goes. Sports podcast. I give you my opinions. You agree? Cool. You don't? Cool. At the end of the day, who cares anyway? Um, while putting this episode together, uh, I was sitting down and I was like, what do I want to talk about this week? And I really didn't have anything on my mind. I'm not gonna say it's been a slow sports week. It hasn't been. Olympic basketball started, so that's been cool. I watched Greece and Canada play. That was a close game and really hard fought. I watched what other game did I watch? Uh, the game after Greece and Canada. I can't remember what, or was it the game before? I think it might have been the game, like the back half of the game before. Either way, Olympic basketball started. The Olympics have started. So that's exciting times. Um, uh, the MLB is about a week into the second half of the season. And today was the trade deadline, and that's been that was interesting all the way around. Some big players got moved. Some already rich teams got richer, and some teams that had pieces that had spots that needed to be filled, holes that needed to be filled. They got pieces to fill those spots. Um, in terms of the NFL, training camp is starting. Started about a week ago, I believe, and starting to ramp up. We're getting to padded practices now. Um, this Thursday actually is the Hall of Fame game. So again, things are the seasons are starting to come along. And it hasn't like I said, it hasn't been a slow week. I just didn't really have anything on the mind that I really wanted to talk about. So in lieu of that, I decided I'm going to put together a list of 5 players in the NFL, the MLB, and the NBA that I believe are the best players in those leagues currently, right now, today. Um, Now how this is gonna go, it isn't based off of it's loosely based off of resume, um, but it's also based off of the most recent season's play, and for the NFL, and for the MLB, what's going on currently. Um, and it there is no bias to it. It is just purely what I think and how I feel about these players. Um, and I think that's kind of that's really it. That's kind of the basis of it. That's how I kind of put these together. So with that out of the way, let's jump right into it. We're gonna start with the NFL. We can call that my home league. My home sport. I'm a football fan through and through, former football player. And we're gonna start five down to one. I can't give you the good stuff first. So we're gonna start five down to one. And sitting at number five on my list, I have Miles Garrett, defensive end from the Cleveland Browns. Now, this NFL list was a little difficult for me to put together. Not the hardest for me to put together of the 3 leagues, but a little difficult because when I got past 1 and 2, and you obviously we'll get to 1 and 2, but when I got past 1 and 2, I was like, where did the defensive players fall, right? And I feel like the NFL is becoming increasingly an offensive driven league, right? And don't get me wrong, it still takes defense to win championships. Um, but I wasn't really sure of where I wanted to slot the best defensive players in at. And as I was putting it together, I was thinking, well, I can't really think of three other offensive guys that warrant that are good enough to fill out a top five without throwing in at least one or two defensive players. So here's where I put in Miles Garrett. Miles Garrett, just to give a little bit of a sense of what he's done in his career so far, 88 and a half sacks over, I believe, 6 years. I could be wrong on that. I believe it's been 6 years. Let me double check. But just to keep going, 305 total tackles, 94 tackles for loss, and 16 pass defenses from a defensive end position. And all of this being done over the course of 7 years, right? Within those 7 years, also, he's a five-time Pro Bowler, three first team All Pro selections, and won the 2023 Defensive Player of the Year award. Now, granted, is there an argument made that could be made for, how do I want to say this? Let me put it like this. When I picked Miles Garrett for the fifth spot, he wasn't the only defensive end or defensive player that came to mind. But when I took stock of, the other minds and name, the other names in mind, when I took stock of the other names in mind, um, it just felt like Miles Garrett, both both his on the field presence and his production and kind of like what he's done accolade wise has been better than the other names I had in mind. Um, and I'll talk about like them those names because they may or may not be on this list. Who knows? But moving on to number four, I have Devontae Adams, wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders, and I know that this is a little controversial off the rip. I know that this is a hot take. Personally, I feel that Devontae Adams is the best receiver in the league, and I don't really think it's a question. I know a lot of people put Tyreek Hill in that spot. A lot of people are starting to put Justin Jefferson in that spot. I think Justin Jefferson has a couple more years to go before he gets there. He's good. Don't get me wrong. He's really good. Probably almost nearing top five. But I don't think he's the best. I think Devontae Adams and what Devontae Adams does on a week in week out basis, and the fact that he's had lackluster quarterback play in Vegas and put up 1,000-yard receiving yards in both years in Vegas. I don't know. To me, that screams best receiver in the league. Um, well, the first year in Vegas wasn't lackluster play because he had Derek Carr throwing to him. And I think Derek Carr is a top 15 quarterback in the league. But last year having lackluster quarterback play and being able to put up over 1,000 yards i- is a testament to just how good Devontae Adams is, right? Um, Devontae Adams through his, I believe, 8-year career, 6 years in Green Bay, 2 years in no, 10-year career now. Wow, going into his 11th year. It's been a long time. Sheesh. Um, yeah, okay. I just wanted to count and make sure I was right. Um, through his 10-year career, Devontae Adams has put up 872 receptions, 10,781 receiving yards, and 95 receiving touchdowns. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's the mark of a guy who's had productive years. Not year in, year out. He did have a little bit of a slowish start to his career before he really broke out, but when he broke out, he stayed on the scene, and he's become a premier receiver in the league, and will be a premier receiver in this league for years to come. Um, he's also had 6 Pro Bowl selections and 3 first team All Pro selections. Now, like I said, I think a lot of people will put Tyreek Hill in that best receiver and that number one receiver, the best receiver in the league conversation. When I was doing research to look at stats and stuff, I wanted to see how they stacked up against each other, right? And turns out, numbers wise, Devontae Adams has has the edge on Tyreek Hill in most of his numbers in most of his categories. Um, but to me, the reason why I feel Devontae Adams is the best receiver in the league is because Devontae Adams is not a one-dimensional receiver, right? It's not just route running, it's not just, possession in hands, it's not just being a deep threat, it's not just being a vertical receiver, which you can kind of say are one and the same, but I think they're a little different. Um, they have slightly different connotations to it. He's not just a jump ball 50-50 guy. He is an all around receiver who can do almost anything on the football field that a receiver is asked to do, if not anything, and still be a game-changing receiver with 2 and 3, 4 guys watching him, staring at him because they know he's getting the ball and it doesn't make a difference to him because he knows that week in, week out, he's the best player on that field. So that's why I think that's why I have Devontae Adams at 4. Just because of his how he impacts the game. And that was the other kind of criteria that came to me when I was putting this list together, and it'll come through. You'll see it in the other lists too, sort of. The MLB is a little different, but um, it really is how impactful each player is, right, and how much of an impact they have on outcomes of the game. And I think Devontae Adams has he swings the outcome of the game so heavily through his play that when he's not on the field, it's hard for his teams to win, right? And um, if you really want to get a sense of just how good he is, go watch Netflix's receiver documentary. I've only watched the first couple of episodes, and I don't really want to like shameless plug them because I'm not sponsored by them. I don't get anything from them, but I think it's a really good tell of just the hard work, the dedication, but also the talent that Devontae Adams possesses, right? And there was one instance that really like sold me on Devontae. If I wasn't sold already, but that really sold me on Devontae Adams was the LA Chargers game last year. He leaves The first half was it the LA Chargers game? I think it was. But it's like in the second episode, they talk like he leaves the game with an injury, with a shoulder injury, AC joint. And anyone that's ever injured their AC joint, it's not a fun injury. I injured my AC joint in high school. It's not a fun injury, and it will linger for the rest of your life. You will deal with it. Um, so he left the game with an AC joint injury, and they had no idea if he'd be able to come back in and play, or what the it all depended on how he felt. Um, they gave him a shot to numb the pain. He jumps back in. He goes off for this monster game and helps the Raiders win. If that doesn't tell you the type of player Devontae Adams is and just how impactful he is, I don't know what does. Um, moving on, the next guy I have on my list, one of the most impactful, if not the period most impactful defensive players in the league, TJ Watt, defensive or technically defensive end. He's more of a linebacker. Well, however you want to designate him, linebacker, defensive end, edge rusher, however you want to, signify or designate him, signify whatever word you want to put there. Whatever you want to call him. um, Edge rusher, Pittsburgh of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a guy that was, especially last year, on a Pittsburgh Steelers team that was struggling for most of the season. This is a guy that was a lone bright spot, and when he's not on the field, it is really felt. Like that Pittsburgh Steelers defense struggles mightily. Um, and even just not even giving his stats, looking at his accolades, right? Six-time Pro Bowler, 2021 Defensive Player of the Year, four four-time first team All Pro, and a three-time sack leader. He's led the league three times in sacks, right? Over his 7-year career. Yeah. And when you think about it like that, right? You and you really look at the landscape, the defensive landscape in the NFL, and you try to like find because I feel, especially with the retirement of Aaron Donald, who would have been on this list had he not retired. Um, with the retirement of Aaron Donald, I feel like there are less and less big name defensive players, and more so just guys that are, how do I want to say this? More so, you have a lot of guys that are just big parts of a unit, right? Like big gears, big cogs in the wheel, right? Big gears in the hole. But when you look at a guy like T.J. Watt, Miles Garrett, Micah Parsons, right? Those guys, Brian Burns, those are big name guys that week in week out you're looking for to make an impact. That's not to say a guy like Nick Bosa isn't a big name guy or Daniil Hunter, but that's more to say that I feel, and we'll see it with Daniil Hunter this year in Houston if he can make an impact in that Houston defense, as opposed to like compared to what he did in Minnesota. Um, but I feel like those guys aren't like they don't plug and play as easily, right? Or they are, recognizable names, but they're not the names I think of when I think of the most impactful names in the league. Nick Bosa's, I feel like if this was extended, Nick Bosa would probably be the next defensive player I would put on this list. But I really think TJ Watt is far and away the best defensive player in the league right now. Not only just based off his resume, but like I said, based off of what he's done recently, right? Last year, like I said, the Steelers were hurting. They were down. They I think they ended up being close to the playoffs, but I think defensively they weren't where they normally are. But even then, TJ Watt came out and had a good year, led the league in sacks with 19. Um, Finished the season with 68 total tackles, which is this tied for most in his career. 19 tackles for loss, and I think that, like I said, I think TJ Watt did play a big role in that Pittsburgh defense and continues to and will continue to, and he is an impactful piece there, just because he's almost unblockable, and he's not just a force of getting to the quarterback or getting past the line of scrimmage and run stopping. It's just it makes you really think, and from a quarterback standpoint, right? It makes you he's a guy that you have to key in on no matter what. No matter who else is on that field, you have to key in on TJ Watt. If you don't, you're gonna be sorry the next day. Like, if you don't key in on TJ Watt, he's gonna make you pay. And he's been doing that his entire career. So that right there is why I think he's the best defensive player in the league, and that's why I have him at number three. Um, at number two, I have Christian McCaffrey. I debated this. Well, I didn't really debate this. It was when I got to three because I was gonna put Devontae Adams at three, and when I got to three, I debated who would be would it be Devontae Adams or Derrick Henry, right? Now, for me, I think the gap of best running back in the league is starting to widen again. I think Derrick Henry has held it for a little bit, has held that title for a little bit, for like 2 or 3 years. But I think it's changing hands back to Christian McCaffrey. Now that he's out of Carolina and he's in an offense that's going to utilize him the way he wants to, the way he's supposed to be utilized you know, as a dual threat back, as a guy that can run the ball and get you a bunch of yards running, that you can hand the ball off to and he can be your bell cow, but also as a guy that you can throw the ball to out of the backfield or even line up at receiver at times and throw the ball and get the ball to him that way. Um, that Kyle Shanahan offense is going to use him because that's what they want to do, right? Um, and I think he's consistently been able to put up pro- high production numbers even from his time in Carolina to now. Over the course of his career, which it feels like it's been a long time, but I don't even think it's been that long. Another 7-year career, like CMC has not been in the league for super long, but um, this is a guy over the course of 7 years has amassed 6,185 rushing yards, 52 rushing touchdowns, right? As well as 4,320 yards in the air receiving and 29 receiving touchdowns. Now, granted, that might not like jump out off the page because you're thinking some people might think of that in context of a receiver. But if you know the game, and you understand how the game works, in the context of a running back, those numbers through 7 years is mind blowing. That right there is the mark of a really good back, right? And the fact that he's also putting up the numbers he's putting up on the ground, yeah, he for sure is I believe the best running back in the league right now. I think Derrick Henry makes a case for close second, but I think just CMC's versatility and again the way he changes the game with his play. He him and Derrick Henry are both the type of guys where you can just kind of hand the ball off to and just one run will change the game. But it's Christian McCaffrey has this extra added dimension of no matter where you get him the ball, it doesn't matter where he gets the ball at, as long as he gets the ball and has space, he's going to change the game regardless. It doesn't matter where he gets the ball at. And throughout his career, he's proven that. And granted, his accolades aren't, as numerous as would lead you believe with his production would lead you to believe. But um, three-time Pro Bowler, two-time first team All Pro, and last year's Offensive Player of the Year. I think I think that's a pretty decent resume for a league where the running back position seems to be dying, right? Where you're no longer seeing those stalwarts, those mainstays at running back, those guys that are a team's only running back, right? They only use one running back and that's it. You're no longer seeing that just due to injury, wear and tear, stuff like that. Um, but Christian McCaffrey is one of the few that will continue to be a team's bell cow running back no matter where he plays. Moving on to number one, and I feel like this is a no-brainer. I feel like this is everyone's number one. I feel like this guy is has proven himself to be far and away the best player in the NFL, and that's Patrick Mahomes, quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. The resume alone speaks for itself. Three-time Super Bowl champ, three-time Super Bowl MVP, two-time NFL MVP, 2018 Offensive Player of the Year, six-time Pro Bowler, and two-time first-time All-Pro, first-team All-Pro. I don't even have to give you his stats. Like I think that his accolades speak for themselves, and the fact that this guy is again 7 years into his career, like I I I don't even think Brady was at this point 7 years into his career. I think maybe accolades wise, yes, but stats wise, no, I don't think so. I'd have to double check that, but I don't think so. Um, Patrick Mahomes is one of those guys, and he's the quintessential impact player. He changes the game with everything he does on the field, no matter what. And he has so many games on his resume like that where you could look back and say, "Yep, that was Mahomes had his fingerprints all over that one. That was a Mahomes game." Mahomes really changed the outcome of that game. You you look at what was that 2019 in the playoffs against the Texans, or was that 2018? Whatever year that was, the wild card game against the Texans where they were down big going into half. I think the Texans were up 45 to 20 or something like that, or 45 to 7. it was some crazy lead that the Texans had, and Pat Mahomes comes out in the second half and absolutely blows the doors off the Texans, and now and the Texans have no idea what hit them, right? There are just so many, and that's just one of many, right? There's so many games where it's okay. Patrick Mahomes had his stamped his name on the game, and he made his impact, and he continues to prove the doubters wrong. He continues to prove the haters wrong. He's not only the best quarterback in the NFL, he's the best player in the NFL by far. I don't think it's close. I don't think anyone has not only the resume in terms of accolades and stats, but I don't think anyone has as much of an impact as Patrick Mahomes does on the NFL and on the games he's in. Um, so yeah, that's my top five for the NFL. And I'm sticking with it. I mean, I can't change it now, right? I've already listed it off, but that's where I stand. I think there are some other players that I feel like could have arguments for this top five, right? Guys like Nick Bosa, Michael Parsons, who I mentioned earlier, Tyreek Hill, uh, Josh Allen. Um, yes, yeah, those just to name a few, right? But I think this is my top. Not I think this is my top five, and I think these are the five best players through and through. Moving on to the NBA, we're gonna do the same thing we did with the NFL. Start from five, go down to one. Um, and when I did the NBA, I think I leaned a little more towards the impact a player has on each game, and also recency, right? So because again, it is top five players in the league currently, right now, today. So that's how we came to this list. And starting at number five, my guy Steph Curry. What I think we all kind of know why, right? And it's not just because he's my favorite player on my favorite team. No, it's because the dude is the best shooter, the greatest shooter of all time. He's arguably one of the best point guards of all time. And the impact he has had on the not only the Warriors franchise, but the NBA as a whole throughout his career, it speaks for itself. Without Steph Curry, you don't have guys like Trey Young and Damian Lillard expanding their range to match him, right? You don't have kids kids on AAU teams, running around pulling threes from almost half court or trying to dribble like him, trying to do the Curry slide and hit the double behind the back. You know what I mean? You don't have that. Steph's impact on the game is goes like I don't want to say this. I don't want to say it's unspoken because it is spoken of. It's just, you don't have to speak about it because you can see it, right? And just to list off the accolades, right? Four-time NBA champ, 21-22 Finals MVP, two-time MVP, two-time NBA MVP, 10 time All NBA, 10-time All Star, two-time scoring champ. He was a steals champ in 2015, 2016, which was also his MVP year, his first MVP year. No, his second MVP year, his unanimous MVP year. And the biggest of them all, the most three-pointers made all time, right? And I think without and again, without Steph, you don't have the conversations of, "Oh, what if guys like Kyle Korver and Ray Allen and Reggie Miller and, the great three-point shooters of the past had the volume that Steph Curry had?" You don't have that conversation, right? And yes, he's aging, and yes, the Warriors are kinda, in this weird middle ground of, is the dynasty over? Is it not over? Just and again, I said this a couple weeks ago. Just because Clay is gone does not mean the dynasty is over. And I said, as long as the Warriors have Steph Curry, they're gonna be fine. Um, as long as he's healthy and playing basketball for them, they're gonna be all right. Um, but I think his I just think that there's other players right now. As much as I love Steph, and as much as I love to watch him play, and as much as he is my favorite player, I just think that there are other players in today's league that are more impactful. Um, which leads me to my next guy. At number 4, I have LeBron James. I don't need to say much else. I think we all know the resume. I think this is a resume that has been talked about extensively. Um, and the reason I have him ranked at 4 above Steph is just because of the fact that to be doing what he's doing at 39, as much as I don't like him and don't like him as a player and don't like the fact that that sports media is just it's like, how do I say this? As much as I don't like the way the media glazes the man and powders him up and puts him on this pedestal, I understand that it's his play that has gotten him there, right? Granted, personally, I think the clock is starting to, Father Time is starting to catch up on him a little bit. I think within the next couple of years, he might call it quits, just because I don't think he's going to be able to keep up even what he's doing now. Like, he's already started to transition his game to try and become more of a three-point shooter because of the fact that his he just doesn't have the legs to do what he was doing on a nightly basis anymore. To be that athletic brick wall Mack truck of a player anymore. It's getting to a point where he's like, okay, we got to kind of change it up a little bit. Um, but to do what he's doing at almost 40 years old, um, and still impact winning the way he impacts winning. Uh, Granted, the Lakers don't really ebb and flow with LeBron as like maybe Cleveland or Miami did. It's kind of more of an like it's a little more of a all together type of thing. Like, if the full roster of the Lakers aren't playing well, then the Lakers aren't going to win. It's not just if LeBron isn't playing well, the Lakers aren't going to win, and if LeBron is playing well, the Lakers are going to win. It has to. It's more than just LeBron, but he is still a crucial part to the Lakers winning anything, right? And like I said, I don't need to list off the resume. It'll be on screen somewhere, but I don't got to list it off. I think we all know, and it's been talked about over and over and over again exhaustively. And many people regard him as the best player of all time and the best player in today's NBA. That's simply not true. But that is a conversation. Well, the best player in today's NBA is a conversation for right now. But the best player in of all time is a conversation for a completely different time, and we'll get to it. But um, I just think LeBron still has a large impact on winning and still has an imprint on the NBA. Moving on to number three, I have Luka Doncic. And this isn't like, oh, I don't like LeBron, so I'm putting him lower. Nah. I think Luka Doncic and what he did to get Dallas to the finals over the teams he beat to get to the finals last year definitely puts him in this spot. But also, it's not even just that. It's the fact that he has the talent and the ability to be a 30 point a game triple double guy. And just let that sink in. There aren't many people who have averaged a triple double in their career. Right. Right. And there aren't many people who can sit and average, let alone a 30 point a game double double. Right. Now 30 points a game isn't really, you know, that crazy of a benchmark to reach anymore. You have guys reaching that season in, season out now. And but the fact that Luka Doncic can realistically average 30 to 35 a game, give you 10 assists, 10 rebounds a game, and do it almost effortlessly is a testament to his talent, right? And the fact that he's doing it at such an early point in his career, the things he's doing so early on in his career are why he is the third best player in the NBA for me right now. I think I think the fact that, like I said, and it really is the playoff. This past playoff run really did like kind of inform this a little bit, but it's also been his play since he's entered the league, right? Like people have been talking about Luca being the future of the NBA for years now, right? Ever since he stepped foot on an NBA court and put on an NBA jersey. But also the fact that this is a guy that has been an MVP candidate since his rookie year. The last time we saw that was LeBron, right? And I think Luca has a few MVPs on the way for him, but you know what more can I say about it, right? It's the impact on the court night in night out. It's the production numbers wise. It's it's the ability to just kick into the second gear when needed, right? And I said it when I was talking about Dallas in the playoffs a few months ago, a couple months ago, and I said Luka Doncic is Superman. He is Superman for the Dallas Mavericks, and th- that just kind of describes the way he plays. He tries to do almost, except play defense. He tries to do almost everything on the court for that team, and it's because of that. That's why I have him as third in the NBA right now. Um, Moving on to second, in the second spot, I have Joel Embiid. Um, this is a little more of a recency thing than it is accolades. Don't get me wrong, his accolades are there. You know, MVP winner, seven-time All Star, five-time All NBA, three-time All Defensive Team, and a two-time scoring champ. Like the accolades are there, but personally, I feel when you look at Joel's entire body of work, I feel like come playoff time, he's a completely different player and not in a good way, right? But when you look at his regular season play and you kind of combine the two, it balances out a little bit. But regular season Joel Embiid is really good, and just what he's done over the last 2 3 years, I think he's kind of solidified himself as the second best player in the NBA. I think for a little bit that spot was held by Giannis, right? Because Giannis made that move from best player in the NBA. Then Jokic kind of came in and started doing what he was doing and took over, and Giannis kind of got bumped down a second. I think Joel is now in that second spot. He's kind of taking that second spot from Giannis, and I think, like I said, I just think what he's done over the last 2 or 3 years has been so impactful to the Sixers and what the Sixers are trying to do, and why the Sixers made the decision to keep Joel over keeping Ben Simmons, and why the Sixers keep going out and trying to find pieces to pair with Joel Embiid so that they can get to where they want to get to. That being said, at number one, I have Nikola Jokic. I think Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA. I think some people will make the argument for Joel Embiid. Some people will make the argument for Giannis. I think it's Nikola Jokic. This is a guy who can sleepwalk, and I really mean this, who can sleepwalk into triple doubles like it's nothing. And I think the impact he has both on both ends of the court as this mastermind of the game, the IQ he possesses is crazy. The things he sees both defensively and offensively is off the charts. Um, his ability as a big, as a center, as a 7 foot as a 7 footer to come out and not only direct the defense, but also direct the offense like a guard, like a point guard would be able to. He's like a 7 foot Chris Paul. It's crazy to watch, and the way he thinks of the game, and the things he sees, and the seams he finds that aren't noticeable to the naked eye. Like you have to sit and dissect the film to see it. It's crazy. It's really crazy to watch. It's really I I think it's the highest level of basketball being played right now, and it's being played by Nikola Jokic. And the resume is there, right? 2023 NBA champ, 2023 Finals MVP, six-time All NBA, three-time MVP, and reigning MVP, and six-time All Star, right? Like the accolades are there, but it's what he does on the court, night in, night out, and the impact he has on that Denver Nuggets team that really solidified him as the best player in the league for me. And I think, like I said, I think you'll see a trend with these as I go on. More, we'll get to the MLB in a second, because I did split the MLB between position players and pitchers, but you'll see a trend with the number one guys in the MLB, the NBA, and the NFL, right? And it really is the guy that impacts the game every time he touches the ball or every time he's on the playing field, right? And it's the guy that no matter what he does, that team goes as he goes. So, that being said, moving on to the MLB, starting with the position players, and at the number 5 spot, I deliberated on this a little bit because I didn't really know who to put here. Um, I made a case for Mike Trout in my head, Spoiler alert: Mike Trout is not on this list. I made a case for Mike Trout in my head, but then I thought about what he's done recently over the last couple of years. Granted, he's been injured, but what he's done recently over the last couple of years, or since 2020, really. Um, and it really, I was like, there's been better players in that time span who have a similar type of body of work. Um, and there were some other names that I floated around, Mike Trout being the most notable one, but I landed on Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper is, for me, the fifth best player in the MLB right now. And I think the fact that he is the best player on the MLB's leading team right now just kind of gives way to that, right? Um, and also the accolades are there. Two-time NL MVP, 2012 Rookie of the Year. He's a three-time Silver Slugger and an eight-time All-Star. I think that when healthy, and the fact that he's coming off of he's what 2 years removed now from Tommy John, and he's in a completely different position that he's used to playing, and he's playing well in that position. I think that in and of itself warrants him a spot as the fifth best player in the MLB. Um, moving on to number four. I left my water upstairs, and I don't feel like going upstairs to go get it. So it's I apologize if you keep hearing me clear my throat or if I start to, sound a little raspy. I'm dehydrated. It's okay. We'll get through it. Um, moving on to number four, I have Mookie Betts, current shortstop for the Dodgers. I didn't give Bryce Harper's positions. I didn't give positions for the NBA players. I feel like people already kind of understood and kind of know who these NBA players are. Um, but Mookie Betts, shortstop for the Dodgers currently, and this is a guy. When I was looking at his stats and his resume, I didn't know that his resume was this stacked, right? And let me just read it off real quick. He's a two-time World Series champ, 2018 with the Red Sox and 2020 with the Dodgers, right? He's also 2018 AL MVP. He's a six-time Silver Slugger, a six-time Gold Glover, and won the 2018 batting title, which is just, the best batting average in the league. He's also an eight-time All-Star. And based off of that alone, you might be wondering, why do you have him at four then? Simply, the only reason why I have him at four is because I think with the way the Dodgers are constructed right now, and the way the Dodgers have constructed this super team, Mookie Betts' impact has lessened and lessened as his career has gone on. Don't get me wrong, he's still an impactful player, but I think it's become more of there's so many guys around him that impact the game just as much as he does that it's watered down his impact, right? And don't get me wrong, baseball is through and through a team sport, is just as much a team sport as any other sport, and if not more of a team sport than any other sport. But I think when he was in Boston and he proved it by winning AL MVP in 2018, that he was kind of the guy in Boston, right? You had other pieces like Xander Bogaerts and who's the other outfielder? I want to say Austin Jackson, but I don't remember if that's him or not. Um, but you get my point, right? There were other pieces on that roster, right? That it wasn't just Mookie Betts. You don't win a World Series with just one player, right? But it was clear that Mookie Betts was not only the leader on that team, but was the best player on that team. And I think he's still a really good player and really impactful. I just think it's his impact has become watered down. Um, and now you're really gonna ask why I have him at 4 when I give you my next guy. At number 3, I have Fernando Tatis Jr. This is not biased. I understand that I am a San Diego Padres fan. This is not biased at all. Let me remind you, Fernando Tatis is only 5 years into his career, and he missed an entire year due to injury and suspension, right? And he's missed most of this year due to injury. Fernando Tatis is a two-time Silver Slugger. He won Gold Glove last year and was fan voted last year as the league's platinum glove, as the NL's platinum glove winner, and he's a two-time All-Star, right? When healthy, Fernando Tatis has the ability to be one of the best all-around players in the league. Defense, offense, base running, right? And even looking at his stats, and I know I didn't list off stats. I didn't list off the stats for the NBA guys either. They'll be on the screen, but even looking at his stats, right, compared to some of the other guys on this list, he's got a 20.9 WAR. Okay, he's got a 280 batting average. He's got 537 hits over his career, 120 home runs, 309 RBIs, and he's got an 884 OPS. Right now, if I were to give you the stats of Bryce Harper, the stats of Mookie Betts, and even the stats of the next two guys on this list, like you'd be like, okay, those don't really look that crazy compared to the others. But again, let me remind you, Fernando Tatis is only 5 years into his career. Now, if you go back and you look at the stats of Mookie Betts and Bryce Harper, who have been in the league twice as long as he has, you'll say, okay, I see it. I can see it. I understand. Fernando Tatis, when healthy, is one of the best all around players in the league. It's no question, without a doubt. The athleticism he brings, the power he brings, the ability to not only hit for power but also hit for contact, the 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 athleticism he brings as a fielder, right? And now that he's showing that this year with the fact that he's moved into the outfield and isn't playing short this year. He's moved into outfield and he's showing off his range, he's showing off his athleticism, and it is a testament to just how talented he is as a baseball player. And he I think when it's all said and done, he's going to be one of the better he's definitely going to etch his name into San Diego Padres history. His legacy there is going to be there forever. But I think he's going to be one of the in the conversation for top 5, top 10 players all time, right? I think he has the ability to be just that good based off of what he's done individually. Granted, I don't know that the team accolades are going to be there, right? Like the World Series and stuff like that. But I definitely see him winning MVPs down the line. I definitely see him winning more and more Gold Gloves. I definitely see him winning more and more Silver Sluggers. Like I can see him continuing to pile on the accolades as his career goes on. Remind you, he's only 5 years into his career. That's like being 2 years into an NFL career, or 2 or 3 years into an NBA career. He's got time. But moving on, at number 2, I have Aaron Judge. of the New York Yankees. I didn't give you teams either. I gave you Mookie Betts' team and Fernando's team. It'll be on screen. Don't mind me. I'm just kind of going through these. Um, at number two, I have Aaron Judge. Um, a lot of Aaron Judge being number two has to do with the fact that he is has to do with the fact has to do with what he's doing this year. A lot of the reason why um a lot of the reason why he's number two is because of what he's doing this year. The dude's absolutely raking. We're just after the halfway point, and he's got 39 home runs. He's on pace to break his record-setting uh home run mark. Um, but it's not only just his home runs, it's his consistency, his ability to hit for both power and contact, his ability to just get on base. The dude's got a he's the only guy on this list in the top five that's got a 1,000 OPS. He's the all-time active leader in OPS. Little tidbit I picked up while researching. The all-time active leader in OPS. Just that just tells you just how good of a hitter this guy is. He's not just a power hitter. Um, I mean, also the 296 home runs will also tell you just how good of a hitter he is, but that's that. But 2022 AL MVP, 2017 Rookie of the Year, a three-time Silver Slugger, and a six-time All-Star. That's a pretty good resume. And like I said, like I said, what he's doing this year kind of informed this a little bit. I think that he watching him, he looks like he's back in AL MVP. He's back in MVP form, and he's got a pretty good chance of replicating what he did in 2022. And I guess we'll have to see. But regardless of what he's doing, it doesn't make him the best player in the MLB because that title goes to Shohei Ohtani. I said this last what was that last week? Yeah. Said this last week. I think Shohei Ohtani has the ability to be quite possibly the greatest player ever when it's all said and done. And granted, his numbers aren't like jumping off the. I mean, he has really good numbers, but they're not anywhere really near Judge's numbers this year. But the fact that in the back of your mind, you're thinking this is a guy that's coming off of Tommy John surgery. This is a guy that's recovering from Tommy John, right? And knowing that he's not just a hitter, he pitches as well. And I don't have his pitching stats in front of me, his career pitching stats in front of me, but the dude is a great pitcher too. And he was, I believe, fourth in the Cy Young votes a couple years ago. Um, and it really is the fact that he has the ability to be great on both sides, right? As a two-way player. Like one side isn't better than the other. Both sides are equally great, and he has the ability to be the best player on both sides, right? Yeah. In 2022, he was fourth in Cy Young votes. So just the fact that when healthy, he has the ability to be not only an MVP but also a Cy Young winner. And that in and of itself, it should tell you that he's the best player in the MLB right now, regardless of whether or not he's pitching. He he's the best player in the MLB right now, just because of not only potential, but because of the fact that he has the talent to be as good as he is on both sides. But that's the position players. And yes, I listed Shohei as a position player and not as a pitcher. Again, you could put him down as the best player for both position players and pitchers. He's technically more of a pitcher because he doesn't really field defensively, but as a position player, he's just kind of a DH. But uh, that and again, that just kind of shows you just how much of a unicorn Shohei Ohtani is because you don't really know where to classify him, right? But moving on to pitchers, when I was putting this list together, this one was probably the most difficult one to put together for me to put together because I feel like all of the great pitchers that were around a couple years ago aren't really there anymore. Guys like Jake DeGrom, now he's in Texas. I think he's still coming off of, he's still recovering from his injury from, I believe, Tommy John, if I'm not mistaken. Um, or whatever the injury was, but he's still recovering from that. Guys like Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, they're kind of on the ends of their careers. Um, Clayton Kershaw, right? He's kind of towards the end of his career and is just coming back, just now coming back from injury. And you have guys like I feel like, and this is what I meant when I said the Dodgers kind of have this super team that they've built, both by farm system and by free agency. Um, I think the Dodgers have one of the best young rotations that they're building in the MLB, in the majors. Like it's guys like Dustin May, um, uh, Walker Bueller is another guy. They just called up another guy this year that had a pretty good introduction. He had a really good debut game. Um, and then the addition of Tyler Glass now this year, like the Dodgers are very scarily building one of the best teams ever, I feel. And it's going to be really, really embarrassing if they don't win a World Series this year. Really embarrassing. Not to jinx them or anything, but just to say it's going to be really embarrassing if they don't win a World Series this year. Um, but to start off with the pitchers, at number 5, I have Dylan Cease of the San Diego Padres. Um, and I want to preface this before we really get into this. This list is all starters. There are no closers, no relief pitchers. I feel like closers would have probably been the only kind of pitchers that I would have made exception for, but I feel like the they don't really get the volume or the what's the word I'm looking for? You get what I'm trying to say though. They don't really get the volume as starters, so it's kind of hard to tell to kind of distinguish. Like it's easier to say, oh, who's the best closer in the majors, but it's not. It's harder to say, oh, this closer is among the best pitchers in the majors. Is among the one of the best, among the best pitchers in the majors. So this list is all starters, um, and it's a little harder for me to put together. It was a little harder for me to put together because, like I said, I feel like a lot of the starters that were really good and would have been on this list are no longer in their prime and aren't the pitchers they used to be. But I digress. Like I said, number 5, Dylan Cease for the San Diego Padres. Um, this is a guy who in 2022 was the AL Cy Young runner-up for the White Sox. And this year for the Padres, he's been pitching pretty well. To give you his stats on the year, he's got a 10-8 record with a 3.5 ERA and on 131 innings pitched and 168 strikeouts with a walks and hits per innings pitched of less than one, which is kind of rare. You don't really see that a lot. Um, so I think he's been pitching well this year, and I think you add the Cy Young runner-up from 2022, um, and his numbers as a whole from the entirety of his career don't look bad either. You know, he's got 3.78 career ERA and 960 strikeouts on his career with a 1.252 WHIP. It's not bad, you know. Like I think that warrants the fifth best pitcher in the majors right now. And I think as he continues to go, as the season continues to go on, he'll continue to prove that he is one of the top arms in the majors. And as you'll notice, I will have less and less to say about these guys because it's hard to really watch a lot of pitchers because they only pitch once every 5 games. So if you're not really keyed into when they pitch, and I I feel like the I think pitchers have more turnover. Like the group of top tier arms has more turnover than the group of top tier position players. Like I feel like guys like Mookie Betts and Bryce Harper have been in the conversation for best players in the majors position player wise for years, right? But you look at the pitchers and you look at a guy like Dylan Cease, he's just only recently entered that conversation, right? So it's kind of hard to really. But this is what I think, and this is what I'm going with. At number 4, I have Tyler Glass now, who I spoke about earlier. His numbers this year don't really jump out at you, right? But I think it's the fact that he's been a steady arm in the Dodgers rotation and been one of those guys that the Dodgers rely on night in, start in, start out, you know, at every start, every time he takes the bump. And I think in his short career, he's really proven that he is an elite arm and he while he doesn't have the accolades, right? I think that he's going to start to rack them up now that he has a bigger spotlight on him. And now that he's in a position where he can provide and produce and contribute to a team that's going to be contending, right? Granted, he was, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, he was. I believe he was a part of Tampa Bay's World Series run, if I'm not mistaken. Um, no, because hold on. I'm doing a little bit of on the fly research real quick. Hold on, because if I'm not mistaken, it was 2020, 2021 they won. Am I tripping? Who did they win from? Promise you, they won one recently. No, they lost. They did make it to the World Series. They lost to the Dodgers, but he was a part of that 2020 run. Like I thought. Um, I could have sworn they won one. Why am I thinking that they won one? I don't know. I'll figure that out later on my own time. Um, but I think that in his relatively short 9 years, you know, I think 9 years is a is on the shorter end. I feel like you're just now getting towards the middle of your career at 9 years, and you 9 years in. I feel like most guys in the majors tend to play for 15ish years, 15 maybe 20 years. Um, because I think the major league, I think baseball as a whole is one of those one of those games that kind of just lends to longevity and allows players to play for long periods of time just because of the nature of the way it's played. It's not really too taxing physically. Um, but I really think that the accolades will come for him. But I think looking at his career as a whole, and now that he's on, and then looking at what he's doing with the Dodgers this year, and now he's on a team that is contending. Not that the Rays weren't contending when he was there, but I think it's a different light, right? And now that he's a guy that the Dodgers are really relying on, I think he'll be able to show that he is an elite arm in the majors, and I think that he is the fourth best pitcher in the majors this year, or not even just this year, just as of recently, right? Um, Number three, I have Corbin Burns. This is a guy who currently is in the runnings for the Cy Young this year, pitching really well for the Orioles. Um, just to read off his stats a little bit, he's got a 10-4 record um, through 21 games and 132 innings pitched with a 2.45 ERA, which is actually really good. um, most guys tend to stay around that like three ish. It's kind of rare, I feel, to see guys under 2.5. Um, for reference, if I'm not mistaken, hold on. For reference, in Jake DeGrom's Cy Young years, where is yeah, in Jake DeGrom's 2018 Cy Young year, he had a 1.7 ERA. ERA, for those of you that don't follow baseball, is just earned runs allowed, or earned run. I know what the stat is. Earned runs average. So it's the amount of runs that you, as a pitcher, give up in terms of that aren't scored by way of wild pitch, or well, I think that still counts as an earned run. I have to double check that. But basically, it's a stat that tracks the amount of runs you give up in a start in an appearance. Um, but Jake DeGrom in 2018 in his Cy Young year had a 1.7 ERA. In 2019, his second Cy Young year, he had a 2.43 ERA. So, like I said, I feel like guys tend to err around. They tend to average around the three mark, three and up, or anywhere from 2.5 to like 3.1 is kind of like your average, right? And a little, maybe a little each way. But I think anything under 2.5 is kind of like okay, you're you're doing something out there, right? Um, but yeah, I think Corbin Burns has been pitching really well this year. He's in the race for another Cy Young, um, and to go along with his 2021 NL Cy Young, he was also the 2021 ERA title. Holds the 2021 ERA title. He's also a four-time All-Star. And I think the fact that he's kind of powering that Orioles rotation and leading the charge as the Orioles are seeking to win the AL East and are in a tight race with the Yankees right now for the AL East title. The fact that he's been their steady hand, the guy that they look to really, right the ship, is really, I think, tells me that he is one of the better one of he is a top arm in the league, and I have him at 3 just because of what he's done in the past as a Cy Young winner, but also what he's doing now as a guy that's looking to win another, right? Um, at number 2, I have Zach Wheeler for the Philadelphia Phillies. Ironic that I have 2 Phillies on both my lists, that I have a Philly on both my lists. But Zach Wheeler this year is not only in the run for the Cy Young, right? But and while I was doing research on this a little bit, because I looked in to see what the Cy Young race was looking like, which kind of informed this a little bit. But I looked, and there was a quote that I read. There was something that the author of the article that I read said, and it really stuck with me because I was like, yeah, that's true. Honestly, Zach Wheeler has been one of the best pitchers in the majors since he put on a Phillies jersey in 2019. And as a Mets fan, it kind of hurts because this is somebody that we had in our rotation, but we just never got to see the full extent of what he could do. And now the Phillies have him, and the Phillies are getting quite possibly one of the best pitchers in the majors, arguably, if not the best, right? And what he's done since he's put on a Phillies jersey, he's just gotten better every year. And this year, he's in the race for Cy Young and could possibly be leading that Cy Young race in the NL. And uh, I think just hit and not and it's and again kind of similar situation to Corbin Burns. The fact that he's the top pitcher on a team that is leading on the major league leading team right now. He is the top pitcher on the best team in the majors, and I think that it really just cements that he is. And obviously, the dominance comes with that, right? You aren't you don't be regarded as you're not regarded as one of the best pitchers since 2019 if you don't have that dominance on the mound, right? And the dominance is there, obviously. But I think it's just like I said, a Corbin Burns situation where it's the reliability. You know what you're gonna get from Zach Wheeler night in, night out. Every 5 days, you know what you're getting from Zach Wheeler. And to end off this list, another guy who's in that similar conversation of you know what you're gonna get every 5 days from him, and who I think currently is the best pitcher in the majors, Garrett Cole for the Yankees. I think, and it's funny because when you think about it, right, this is a dude that has been around for a while, right? Started off with the Pirates, got traded to the Astros, and now is with the Yankees. Um, this is a guy that ever since he's really come into the league, he's been regarded as one of the better pitchers in the majors. And I think when he got to Houston is when his star really started to rise, and when he really started to cement himself as the best, or as or in that conversation of the best pitcher in the majors. And and even when you look at that rotation that he was a part of in Houston, right? And you look at the guys that he had that he was on that he shared that rotation with, right? Because it was him, it was Dallas Keuchel. I'm pretty sure Verlander was a part of that rotation as well. I believe those were, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on, let me double check before I actually say that. Um, Let me see real quick before I actually say what I'm going to say. Um, where is I apologize for this. Um, Imma find it though. Why is it I don't know why it's like why this is put together like this. Baseball reference, fix this. But yeah, Garrett Cole. It was Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, Dallas Keuchel. Um, don't remember who rounded out the rotation. Um, but those were the three main guys. Oh, Lance McCullers was the other guy I was thinking of. Was the other guy not who I was thinking of though? Um, and I believe Charlie Morton was their fifth guy, or was their fourth guy, and Lance McCullers was their fifth. Um, but if you look at the rotations from those 2 years, right, and you look at who he shared a rotation with in those 2 years, and you look at where they are compared to where he is, the only guy that I would say is I wouldn't even say he's remotely close. But if you really look at it, like there's none of them are even close to doing what he's doing right now, right? Like, granted, the only guy that's even close to him in age is Lance McCullers, but that I feel like Dallas Keuchel kind of fell off after leaving the Astros. I feel like Verlander has had maybe 1 or 2 good years after leaving the Astros, and then even the World Series winning year. But you know, credit that to whatever you want to credit it to. But I think Garrett Cole has continued to be on this rise, and he's continued to cement himself as one of the more dominant pitchers in the majors. And like I said in that conversation, for the best pitcher in the majors. And he 2023 AL Cy Young, 6-time All Star, 2-time ERA title holder. Uh, and I think, granted, maybe this year he's having a little bit of a down year, I feel, but I still think what he's done over the last couple of years uh, is enough to really say that he's the best pitcher in the majors this year. Um, I mean, also he's only got seven starts on the season because he was coming back from injury, I believe. Um, so his numbers are a little down just because of his lack of appearances, lack of playing time. But I when you watch him pitch, you really do see the dominance on the mound, and you really see the command. You really see the ability to pinpoint his spots, but also the ability to change speeds and get pitchers to look fastball but give them a changeup. Get batters to look fastball but give them a changeup. Just the ability to control the flow of the game, I feel, is what Garrett Cole does best, and I think he does it better than anyone right now. That doesn't mean that like Zach Wheeler isn't close. Zach Wheeler is pretty close, I think, but I just think that Garrett Cole is the best pitcher in the majors at the moment, and that kind of rounds out my list. You know, This was a pretty decently long episode. Not too super long, but we've been here for a minute. So that's all I got. Um, those are in the MLB, NFL, and NBA. The top five players in each league for the MLB, both position players and pitchers. Um, that's all I got. I'm out of here. I say it at the beginning of the episode. If you don't agree with any of this, cool. You agree with all of it or some of it, cool. But at the end of the day, who cares anyway? Peace.